The fluorescent lights of the conference room buzzed above me as I waited for my turn to present. Seattle's perpetual drizzle tapped against the windows, creating a rhythm that matched my racing heartbeat. I glanced down at my notes one more time, though I hardly needed them. This app idea had consumed my thoughts for months. "Eloise Bennett, you're up next," called Marcus, our team lead. I stood up, smoothing my navy blazer and taking a deep breath. At 32, I'd been at Vertex Solutions for 7 years, long enough to know how these quarterly innovation meetings typically went. The same senior developers always got the green light for their projects, while the rest of us watched our ideas collect dust. "Thanks, Marcus." I connected my laptop to the projector. "I'd like to present Soundscape." The screen lit up with my prototype's interface, clean, intuitive, with a calming color palette of blues and greens. Soundscape is an app that allows users to create personalized ambient soundscapes based on their surroundings, mood, and activities. It uses AI to learn preferences over time and suggest optimal sound environments for focus, relaxation, or creativity. I clicked through the demo, showing how users could layer natural sounds, instrumental music, and white noise, then save and share their custom soundscapes. The market research shows that productivity apps are saturated, but there's a gap for personalized wellness solutions that integrate seamlessly into daily routines. I moved to my final slide. Initial development would take approximately 4 months with a soft launch in Q3. The room fell silent when I finished. I searched the faces around the table, looking for some sign of interest. Brad from marketing was scrolling through his phone. Diane from UX design was doodling on her notepad. Marcus cleared his throat. "That's interesting, Eloise. But is this really solving a problem? Isn't this just another white noise app? It's actually much more sophisticated than—" "And the development timeline seems optimistic," interrupted Craig, our senior developer. "AI integration would take twice as long as you're estimating." "I've already built a working prototype on my own time," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The core functionality is—" "Look," Marcus cut in, "we need to focus our resources on projects with immediate revenue potential. The meditation app space is crowded, and frankly, I don't see this standing out." A few chuckles rippled through the room. I felt my cheeks flush. "Maybe next quarter, Eloise," Marcus said, already turning to the next presenter. "Ryan, you're up. Let's hear about your sports betting analytics platform." I disconnected my laptop and returned to my seat, my stomach in knots. As Ryan launched into his presentation, complete with projected revenue charts that looked suspiciously inflated, I stared at my screen where Soundscape's interface glowed back at me. They didn't get it. They hadn't even tried. That evening, I sat on my apartment balcony overlooking Lake Union. The water rippled with the reflection of city lights as boats drifted by in the distance. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Soundscape files. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Audrey. "How'd the pitch go?" I typed back. "They laughed it out of the room." 3 dots appeared, then, "Their loss? Still on for dinner tomorrow?" "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. I turned back to my laptop, but instead of closing the project folder as part of me wanted to do, I found myself opening my code editor. If Vertex wouldn't back Soundscape, maybe I didn't need them. The next evening, I met Audrey at our favorite Thai restaurant in Capitol Hill. The small, family-owned place was packed as usual, buzzing with conversation and the clatter of dishes. "So they really shot it down?" Audrey asked after we'd ordered. Her curly hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she still wore her scrubs from her shift at the hospital. "Completely." I took a sip of my Thai iced tea. "Marcus basically said it was a glorified white noise machine." But that's not what it is at all," Audrey said, frowning. "It's about creating personalized soundscapes that adapt to your environment and needs. Honestly, I'd use it every day during my hospital shifts." "Exactly." I leaned forward. But they didn't even give it a chance. Meanwhile, Ryan's sports betting app got immediate approval. "Of course it did," Audrey rolled her eyes, "because gambling is exactly what the world needs more of." Our food arrived, steam rising from the colorful dishes. "So what are you going to do?" Audrey asked, mixing her pad thai. I pushed a piece of tofu around my plate. "I've been thinking about that. What if I developed it myself? Nights, weekends? I already have a working prototype. Audrey's eyes widened. Like, leave Vertex? Not immediately, but maybe eventually. The idea had been forming since the meeting, becoming clearer with each passing hour. I've got some savings, enough to give it a real shot. That's a big risk, Elle. I know, but I really believe in this. I met her gaze. When I'm using the prototype, even in its basic form, it makes a difference. I can focus better, sleep better. Imagine what it could do when it's fully developed. Audrey studied me for a moment, then nodded. Well, if anyone can make it happen, it's you. And for what it's worth, I think Soundscape is brilliant. Thanks, Audrey. I smiled, feeling a surge of determination. I just might need someone to remind me of that when I'm debugging at 2 a.m. That's what best friends are for, she laughed. That, and beta testing. By the time we finished dinner, a plan was taking shape in my mind. I'd continue at Vertex for now, but every spare moment would go to Soundscape. I'd build it, test it, refine it, and prove Marcus and the others wrong. As I walked home through the lively streets of Capitol Hill, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Excitement. Pure, unfiltered excitement about creating something that was entirely mine. Something I believed in. The Seattle skyline glittered against the night sky, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. My apartment transformed into Soundscape headquarters. The spare bedroom became my development space. Walls covered with user flow diagrams and feature lists. Weekdays belonged to Vertex, but nights and weekends were all about my app. 3 weeks in, I was deep in code when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Mom. Hey, Mom, I answered, stretching my stiff shoulders. Eloise, honey, how are you? I haven't heard from you in over a week. Sorry, I've been busy with a new project. I glanced at the clock, 11:30 p.m. I'd been coding for 6 hours straight. That work keeps you too busy, she said with a sigh. How's that nice manager of yours, Marcus? I suppressed a groan. He's fine, but this is actually my own project. I'm developing an app. Your own app? Like a business? The concern in her voice was immediate. Is that wise with the economy the way it is? Your job at Vertex is so stable. It's just something I'm exploring on the side for now, I said, not wanting to get into the full plan. My parents had always prioritized security over risk. Well, don't let it interfere with your real job, she cautioned. Remember your cousin Jeffrey? He left his accounting position to start that food truck, and now he's back living with his parents at 35. This is different, Mom. I'm not quitting tomorrow. After reassuring her that I wasn't about to throw my career away on a whim, we chatted about my younger brother's new house and Dad's golf tournament before saying goodnight. I returned to my computer, but my mother's concerns echoed in my mind. Was I being foolish? The tech graveyard was full of apps that never found their audience. I opened my Soundscape prototype and put on my headphones. The gentle sound of rainfall mixed with soft piano notes filled my ears, drowning out the doubts. This wasn't just code to me. It was something I wished had existed when I needed it most. During those anxiety-filled nights after my breakup with David 2 years ago, or the overwhelming weeks when 3 major projects at Vertex all came due at once. The next morning at work, I found myself paired with Craig on a client project. The same Craig who had dismissed my development timeline estimates during the pitch. I need the user authentication module by end of day, he said without looking up from his monitor. The client wants a demo tomorrow. That wasn't on today's sprint, I replied, checking our project board. Plans change. Just make it happen. He took a sip of coffee from a mug that read, I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining why I'm right. I bit my tongue and got to work. As frustrating as Craig could be, I needed this job, at least until Soundscape could stand on its own. By 6:30 p.m., I'd finished the authentication module and sent it to Craig. No thank you, just a curt received in response. I packed up my things, noticing that most of the office had already cleared out. As I waited for the elevator, Marcus stepped up beside me. Late night, Eloise? Just finishing up the authentication module for Craig. He nodded absently. Good. Hey, Ryan's sports betting app is moving to development next week. We're putting together a team. Interested? The elevator doors opened, and we stepped inside. What would be my role? I asked, though I already knew I didn't want any part of it. Back-end support, mostly. Some API integration. He checked his watch. It's a big opportunity. Could lead to a senior position if the app performs as expected. The elevator reached the lobby. I'll think about it, I said, which was technically true. I would think about it, for about 5 seconds before saying no. Let me know by Friday, he called, as I headed toward the exit. Outside, the early summer evening was unusually warm for Seattle. I decided to walk the 15 blocks home, using the time to clear my head and think about Soundscape. I was making progress, but slower than I'd hoped. The AI component that would learn user preferences and adapt soundscapes accordingly was proving particularly challenging. I needed help, but I couldn't afford to hire anyone yet. Halfway home, I stopped at a small coffee shop I frequented. The owner, Zoe, waved as I entered. The usual, she asked. Please. I nodded, settling at a corner table with my laptop. As I worked, a woman at the next table kept glancing over. Finally, she spoke. Sorry to interrupt, but are you working on an app? I hesitated, protective of my idea. Yes, actually. I thought so. I'm Violet, by the way. She extended her hand. I'm a UX designer. Eloise, I replied, shaking her hand. How did you know I was working on an app? She laughed. The wireframes on your screen. Plus the intense concentration. I recognize a fellow creator when I see one. We ended up talking for over an hour. Violet had recently moved to Seattle from Chicago and was freelancing while looking for a full-time position. When I described Soundscape, her eyes lit up. That's actually brilliant, she said. I use a meditation app, but it's so generic. Something that learns and adapts to your specific needs? That's the next level. Before she left, we exchanged numbers and made plans to meet again. For the first time, I'd shared my idea with someone in the industry outside of Vertex, and her enthusiasm was validating. That night, I declined Marcus's offer to work on Ryan's project, citing my current workload. He seemed annoyed, but didn't push. What he didn't know was that my real reason was sitting on my laptop at home, slowly taking shape. Over the next 2 months, Violet became an unofficial part of the Soundscape team, helping refine the user interface and experience during our weekend coffee shop sessions. She refused payment, insisting that the portfolio piece would be valuable enough, but I promised her a share if the app ever made money. By mid-August, we had a beta version ready for testing. I sent it to a small group: Audrey, Violet, my brother Kevin, and a few trusted friends. Their feedback was encouraging, with most reporting improved focus and relaxation when using the app. The interface is intuitive, wrote my brother. Even Mom could use this, and you know how she is with technology. Audrey was using it during her night shifts at the hospital. The custom soundscape for hospital environments is a game changer, she texted. It filters out the harsh noises, but lets me hear important alerts. Not all feedback was positive. There were bugs to fix, features that weren't intuitive, and the AI still needed refinement. But the core concept was working. One evening as I was leaving Vertex, I ran into Ryan in the parking garage. Heard you turned down the chance to work on my app, he said, keys jingling in his hand. I've got a lot on my plate right now. He shrugged. Your loss. We're looking at a major launch. Marcus thinks it could be Vertex's biggest success yet. That's great, I said, not really meaning it. I hope it goes well. What are you working on these days anyway? You're always the first one in and the last to leave, but I never see your name on the major projects. Just handling my assignments, I replied vaguely. Nothing exciting. He gave me a skeptical look before heading to his car, a new Tesla that he'd made sure everyone in the office had seen. As I drove home in my reliable but decidedly unsexy 8-year-old Subaru, I thought about the different paths Ryan and I were on. He had the company's full support, a team of developers, and resources I could only dream of. But I had something he didn't, a vision that was entirely mine, uncompromised by committee decisions or corporate priorities. And soon, the world would see it. The launch day for Soundscape arrived on a crisp October morning. After months of development, testing, and refinement, it was finally ready for the App Store. Violet had come over to my apartment for moral support, and we sat side by side on my couch, laptops open. "Ready?" she asked, finger hovering over the submit button on her screen. I took a deep breath. Ready. With a click, Soundscape was submitted for review. Now we waited. "This calls for a celebration," Violet declared, pulling a bottle of champagne from her bag. "Isn't it a bit early to celebrate? They could still reject it." "We're celebrating the milestone," she insisted, popping the cork. "Regardless of what happens next, you built something amazing from scratch. That deserves recognition." We clinked glasses as sunlight streamed through my windows, illuminating the space where countless late nights had turned an idea into reality. 3 days later, I received the email. Soundscape had been approved. Within hours, it was live on the App Store. I stared at my phone, watching as the first download came in. Then another, and another. By the end of the day, we had 57 downloads. Modest, but a start. "We need to spread the word," Violet said during our daily check-in call. "Social media, tech blogs, anywhere we can get exposure." We created accounts for Soundscape on all major platforms and reached out to friends and family to help share. Audrey convinced several doctors and nurses at her hospital to download it. My brother Kevin, who worked in marketing, posted about it on LinkedIn. A week into the launch, we had just over 300 downloads and a handful of positive reviews. Not enough to make a dent in the App Store rankings, but enough to keep me motivated. Then came the email that changed everything. "Eloise, check your inbox," Violet texted one morning. "TechPulse wants to feature Soundscape in their Apps to Watch section." TechPulse was a respected technology blog with a substantial following. A feature could mean thousands of new users. I opened the email with shaking hands. The writer had discovered Soundscape through a tweet from a productivity expert and wanted to interview me about the development process. The article went live 3 days later with the headline, "Soundscape, the adaptive ambient app that could revolutionize how we work and relax." Downloads jumped immediately. By the end of the week, we'd hit 5,000 users. Reviews poured in, most of them glowing. Finally, an ambient sound app that actually learns what I need. Using this during my study sessions has improved my focus tremendously. The custom Soundscape for sleep has helped my insomnia like nothing else. The surge in users revealed new bugs and feature requests, keeping me busier than ever. I was essentially working 2 full-time jobs, my position at Vertex during the day and Soundscape development at night. One evening, as I was hunched over my laptop fixing a crash issue affecting iOS users, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Is this Eloise Bennett, creator of Soundscape?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, this is she. I'm Natalie Wong from Welltech Ventures. We're very impressed with what you've built, and we'd like to discuss potential investment opportunities. Do you have time to meet next week?" I nearly dropped the phone. Welltech Ventures was a venture capital firm specializing in wellness and productivity technology. This wasn't just any investment opportunity. It was exactly the kind of partnership that could take Soundscape to the next level. "Yes, I'm available," I managed to say, grabbing my calendar. "How does Wednesday work?" We set a meeting for the following Wednesday at their downtown Seattle office. As soon as the call ended, I texted Violet and Audrey in our group chat. "You're not going to believe who just called." The meeting with Welltech went better than I could have hoped. Natalie and her team had been using Soundscape and saw its potential for expansion into corporate wellness programs and healthcare settings. "We'd like to offer you $750,000 in seed funding," Natalie said as we sat in their sleek conference room overlooking Puget Sound. "In exchange for a 15% equity stake." The figure made my head spin. With that kind of funding, I could quit Vertex, hire a small team, and focus entirely on Soundscape. "I'll need to review the terms with my lawyer," I said, trying to sound more experienced in these matters than I was. Natalie smiled. "Of course. We'll send over the paperwork today." As I left the building, my phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Vertex's quarterly innovation meeting was tomorrow. The same meeting where my idea had been laughed out of the room months ago. The next day, I sat through presentations on various projects, including an update on Ryan's sports betting app. The launch had been delayed due to regulatory issues, and user acquisition costs were higher than projected. We're still confident in the long-term viability of the platform, Ryan insisted, though Marcus looked less than pleased. When the meeting ended, I lingered, waiting until Marcus was alone. Got a minute? I asked. Sure, Eloise. What's up? I pulled out my phone and opened the App Store, showing him Soundscape's current ranking. Number 7 in the productivity category. Remember this? I asked. His brow furrowed, then recognition dawned. Your sound app? You actually built it? I did. It launched last month. We're approaching 50,000 downloads, and I just received an investment offer from Welltech Ventures. Marcus's expression shifted from surprise to something approaching respect. That's impressive. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice, I said, the words sending a thrill through me. I'm going to work on Soundscape full-time. Eloise, let's not be hasty. Maybe Vertex could acquire your app. We could integrate it into our wellness suite. Give you a team. I shook my head. I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to develop it independently. I just wanted you to know why I'm leaving. As I walked out of his office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The risk I'd taken, the countless hours of work, the doubt and frustration, it had all led to this moment of vindication. That evening, I met Audrey and Violet at a rooftop bar to celebrate. The Seattle skyline sparkled around us as we raised our glasses. To Soundscape, Audrey said. And to taking risks, added Violet. And to proving them wrong, I finished, clinking my glass against theirs. As we looked out over the city, I knew this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. Scaling the app, managing a team, competing with larger companies that would inevitably try to copy our success. But for now, I allowed myself to savor the victory. My phone buzzed. Another download notification. Somewhere out there, someone was discovering Soundscape for the first time, just as I had once imagined it in that conference room where no one had believed in it. No one except me. 6 months after leaving Vertex, Soundscape had grown beyond my wildest dreams. With Welltech's funding, I'd rented a small office space in South Lake Union and hired a team of 5. 2 developers, a UX/UI designer, Violet, of course, a marketing specialist, and an operations manager. Our user base had expanded to over 500,000, and we'd launched a premium subscription model that was already profitable. The app had climbed to number 2 in the productivity category and had been featured on the App Store's main page twice. The Wall Street Journal wants to interview you, said Meredith, our marketing specialist, poking her head into my office. They're doing a piece on women entrepreneurs disrupting the wellness tech space. That's amazing, I replied, looking up from my monitor where I was reviewing designs for our next update. When? Tomorrow at 10 a.m., virtual interview. She handed me a prep sheet. I've outlined the key points we want to emphasize. After she left, I leaned back in my chair, taking in the moment. My office had a view of Lake Union, not unlike the one from my apartment, but it felt different now. This wasn't just my personal project anymore. It was a growing company with employees who depended on its success. The responsibility was sometimes overwhelming, but the freedom to make decisions based on what was best for users rather than corporate interests made it worthwhile. My phone rang. Audrey. Hey, what's up? I answered. Turn on TechStream right now, she said urgently. Channel 8. I grabbed the remote for the small TV mounted on my wall and switched to the tech news channel. Ryan's face filled the screen. He was standing in front of Vertex's logo, looking confident in a perfectly tailored suit. Excited to announce that BetBuddy has been acquired by GameSphere for $30 million, he was saying. This represents a major milestone for Vertex Solutions and validates our approach to sports technology. My stomach tightened. $30 million for an app that hadn't even cracked the top 100 in its category. Are you watching? Audrey asked. Yeah, I said quietly. Good for him, I guess. Please. We both know BetBuddy is mediocre at best, but that's not why I called. Keep watching. The camera panned out to show Marcus standing beside Ryan, shaking hands with executives from GameSphere. And what's next for Vertex? The interviewer asked. Marcus stepped forward. We're doubling down on our innovation strategy. In fact, we're launching a new incubator program for promising ideas that might not fit our traditional development model. We've learned that sometimes the best concepts need room to grow independently. I snorted. Is he serious? They're creating an incubator because of Soundscape's success. Exactly, Audrey said. You changed how they operate. That's huge, Elle. After we hung up, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan's acquisition. The competitive part of me felt a twinge of envy, not at the money itself, but at the validation it represented. For all my success with Soundscape, I hadn't yet achieved that level of industry recognition. But then I remembered something important. I owned 85% of Soundscape. If we were acquired for a similar amount, my share would be worth far more than Ryan's employee stock options at Vertex. More importantly, I was building something meaningful. Our user testimonials included people with anxiety disorders who could finally sleep through the night, students with ADHD who could focus on their studies, and healthcare workers who found moments of calm during chaotic shifts. The next morning, I was preparing for the Wall Street Journal interview when our operations manager, Tessa, rushed in. Eloise, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to the App Store. Soundscape had reached #1 in the productivity category overnight. How? I gasped. The podcast you did last week went viral on TikTok, she explained. A bunch of productivity influencers started posting about their Soundscape setups. We've had over 50,000 new downloads since yesterday. I stared at the screen, at our app icon sitting at the top of the charts. All those months of work, the nights and weekends sacrificed, the doubt and rejection, it had all led to this moment. The interview with the Wall Street Journal went perfectly. I shared the story of Soundscape's creation, including Vertex's rejection of the idea, though I was careful not to sound bitter or vindictive. This wasn't about proving anyone wrong anymore. It was about the journey of bringing something valuable into the world. That evening, I decided to host an impromptu celebration at the office. As the team gathered around with champagne and takeout from our favorite local restaurant, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. I want to thank all of you, I said, raising my glass. 6 months ago, Soundscape was just me and Violet working out of my apartment. Now look at us. To the best boss ever, Violet toasted, and everyone clinked glasses. As we celebrated, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line made me freeze. Acquisition interest. Confidential. I stepped away from the group and opened it. The email was from the CEO of Harmony, one of the largest digital wellness platforms in the world. Dear Ms. Bennett, I've been following Soundscape's remarkable growth with great interest. Our team at Harmony believes there could be significant synergies between our platform and your innovative approach to adaptive soundscapes. We would like to discuss a potential acquisition. The proposed figure at the bottom of the email made my heart race. $45 million. I closed the email without responding. This was a conversation for another day. Tonight was about celebrating with the people who had helped make Soundscape a success. As I rejoined the team, Meredith was in the middle of a story about a user who had written in to say Soundscape had helped them through chemotherapy treatments. They created a special soundscape for hospital visits, she explained. Said it transformed the experience from terrifying to manageable. I smiled, feeling a warmth that no acquisition offer could match. This was why I had built Soundscape, not for validation or wealth, but to make a difference in people's lives. The celebration continued into the evening. As people began to leave, Violet lingered behind. So, she said, perching on the edge of my desk, what was in that email that made you look like you'd seen a ghost? I hesitated, then decided to tell her. We'd been in this together from nearly the beginning. Harmony wants to acquire us for $45 million. Her eyes widened. Holy shit, Eloise, that's life-changing money. I know. I sat down heavily. But I'm not sure I want to sell. Why not? Isn't this what success looks like? I looked around our office, at the whiteboards covered in feature ideas, the user testimonials pinned to the wall, the comfortable chaos of a startup finding its footing. Maybe for some people, I said slowly, but I'm just getting started. There's so much more I want to do with Soundscape. Mental health integration, educational applications, accessibility features for users with sensory processing disorders. Violet studied me for a moment, then nodded. You know, When we first met in that coffee shop, I thought you were just another developer with a side project. But you're actually a founder. It's who you are. Later that night, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, looking out at the same view that had witnessed the birth of Soundscape. The lake reflected the city lights, just as it had on the night I decided to build the app, despite Vertex's rejection. I thought about the email from Harmony, still unanswered. The rational part of me knew I should at least explore the opportunity. $45 million was security for life, freedom to pursue any project I wanted in the future. But something held me back. Soundscape wasn't just an app to me. It was proof that I could trust my instincts even when others didn't. It was the physical manifestation of my belief that technology should serve human well-being, not just entertainment or convenience. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Marcus. "Congratulations on reaching number 1. I should have listened to you. If you're ever interested in bringing Soundscape back to Vertex, my door is open." I smiled but didn't respond. Some doors were better left closed. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. The sun was just rising over Seattle, casting a golden glow across the water. I made coffee and sat at my desk, opening my laptop to respond to the email from Harmony. "Thank you for your interest in Soundscape," I began. "While I'm flattered by your offer, I believe we're still in the early stages of our journey." As I typed, I felt absolute certainty in my decision. They had laughed at my app idea, but I had believed in it enough to build it anyway. Now it was at the top of the App Store, helping hundreds of thousands of people find focus, calm, and better sleep. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning.